There, are we seeing sound? I'm like reaching down my top. I'm sorry, that's where the mic was.
Okay, stop talking. Is my on? It's on.
Okay, it's gonna be like the most entertaining show as
Hello?
I reach down my top.
I was not talking.
Yours is on now.
All right. So we go back to the start. We talked about our cool swag we just got. I got the new Tipsy Realtors. Awesome.
Okay, we're giving up on the mics.
All right. Yeah.
Mics, we're just talking because the mics keep turning off, so we're just gonna talk to you.
Just gonna go with our usual
Exactly.
voices.
All right, we love our hats, but we're gonna make the drink because we gotta just move on from the hats.
And we're doing the Godfather and talking about how to refuse an offer.
That's right.
Let's do it.
All right, so the Godfather is a pretty simple cocktail, and it's actually like a fan favorite. So I will tell you that I do serve it all the time. I serve it to my husband all the time when we have friends over. It is really an after dinner drink or sitting around a fire drink, kind of that drink you sip, you savor, all that kind of stuff. So that's the kind of drink it is. So we're gonna start with our amaretto, which you're putting in. Oh, sorry, look at that.
Get the...
Oh, wrong way.
That's okay. It's sideways.
All right, so we're sticking in the amaretto.
Oh,
it's gonna.
I got it. You got it?
Hang on, it's undoing.
Okay, it's undoing.
All right. Okay. So amaretto is pretty simple. It's 1/2 ounce, and you're just putting it into a glass with usually a big solid ice cube is the best because they actually will melt slower. So it doesn't as fast as like ice cubes would. And if you like the amaretto flavor, you can put a little bit more amaretto in.
Okay.
And then scotch is pretty simple. Any scotch will do. We're doing a 10-year-old scotch here, and we're putting in a full ounce.
Oh, okay.
So I've made it where it's like 1/2 and 1/2. So it's like 1/2 amaretto, 1/2 scotch.
One and one kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's what I would do probably.
Yeah, but in the actual recipe, it's not. But I think it's because I just really like the amaretto flavor.
Yeah.
So, and then you want to put in a little orange peel. So you can do the orange peel accent with an actual rind. We put in dried orange peel.
So just your raw glass with a big block like you use for old fashioned. Smells like scotch to me. Let's see. It's definitely a sipping drink.
It is.
It needs just a little bit get colder. Actually, 1/2 ounce of amaretto is definitely enough. Otherwise, it would be too sweet.
I like this sweeter, so I usually put in the full ounce. Honestly, I usually do 1 and 1. So I'm going to add a little bit more amaretto to mine. Because I usually do 1 and 1. And it's just because I like that sweeter flavor. So if you like it sweeter, put in more amaretto. If you like it less sweet, put in less amaretto.
Yeah, for me, it's perfect. I like perfect sweetness and like amaretto taste. But yeah, it's definitely a sipper. So if you want to like something, cheers to a new swag.
That's right.
Yes. But I feel like if you want something easy to make for your guests, and because sometimes like old fashions, Negronis, with some of those big cube sipping drinks could be a little bit complicated. And this is 2 very easy ingredients. Fresh orange would have been nice too.
Fresh orange, yeah. So a lot of times what we'll do is if we've got a party coming over or a bunch of people, we'll actually make a bunch of our cocktails like an old fashioned and we'll put them into big jugs and we'll actually make a bulk amount of it.
Here's a jug of scotch.
Well, it's easier than sitting there and trying to make the cocktail. So we'll make them in advance and we'll do a bunch of cocktails in advance, put them into jugs, and then people can serve themselves or you can serve them instead of continually having to make them.
You can just kind of combine bottle to bottle. I think it's 750 to 750, right?
Yeah.
So either half of this bottle if you want for less sweet with a bottle of scotch into one bottle.
Absolutely.
Great idea. And you just kind of a couple ounces in a glass with ice and here you go.
Yeah, exactly.
Amazing.
Yeah,
I love that idea.
Yeah, we actually bulk make our cocktails a lot when we have people coming over because my husband says otherwise I'm spending the whole night. not
Yes.
socializing, and I'm only
And I've
making
been there
drinks.
when you're making
I
cocktails
know.
all night, you know, and
Exactly.
cooking and cleaning, and then you're like, I didn't talk to anybody.
I
It
know.
was my party.
I know.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
now let's talk about how to refuse an offer. So first of all, every time you get an offer on your house, it can be written, verbal, or otherwise. I don't know what otherwise is, but we always get written, verbal, or otherwise. So I don't know how else you get an offer, but that is the terms that are used in real estate. So if you get an offer, whether it's written or whether it's verbal, the reality of it is that you should and need to know that all offers must be presented to you as a seller. And if you're a buyer, all offers you make must be presented by the agents in the transaction. Now, those offers can be verbal, those offers can be written. Ideally, as a buyer or a seller, you want to put your offer in writing because there is no such thing as verbal agreements in real estate in Canada. So
Right, and you know, obviously, when you do write things down, it's great for clarity, and there is no misunderstandings. And oh, I forgot if I told them this term or this point or not. So it's kind of clear for both parties what has been offered.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, first of all, obviously, there is the obvious, easy answer of, well, I'm refusing my offer. I'm just saying no to everything. And that is one way to refuse an offer. But when you counter an offer, so when you actually go to an offer and you say, you know what? No, I don't want to accept the offer you've presented, but let me present back to you another offer that I would be willing to accept. That's called a counter offer, but in reality, you've refused the offer and then proposed a different offer. That's why we call it a counter offer.
Yeah.
So that is an actual refusal. The other thing as well is, and you can counter any part of the contract, so keep that in mind. You're not limited in any way as to what you can change in the contract or not. It's all up for grabs. Everything is negotiable. I know I personally have a rule where I say the only thing I don't negotiate in contracts is things with heartbeats, because we have had clients ask us to negotiate a pet in, and I just said no.
Like a horse?
No, well, see, if you're doing an equestrian farm, I guess that would be different because it's livestock. So I guess that would be
So what
my
kind of
exception.
pet was it?
It was a dog.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, dude,
That's
if
weird.
they wanted to get rid of it, like the sellers wanted to get rid of it, and the
Oh,
buyers
the
wanted to
sellers-
buy it. So there was a mutual agreement to deal with the dog, but I was just
Okay.
like, you know what? You guys can do this off of a purchase contract.
Yes, yeah,
Like,
that's something I would do off the contract as well. Yeah.
I'm like, come on. If you really love the dog, you can make a side agreement on that.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
So,
Yeah.
but I guess equestrian, I would say you're right. If I was doing an equestrian farm or a farm with animals, that would be my exception to heartbeats.
You might sell acreage with
Livestock.
cattle, livestock,
Yeah.
things like that.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so it's not a hard and fast rule.
Yeah. But maybe more like of a pets.
Yeah, pets. So with all of that is the other thing a lot of people don't realize is that if you put a deadline in your offer of, let's say, 9:00 at night that day, and they don't answer, no answer is a refusal.
That's right. Yeah.
So a deadline is a deadline, and if they haven't answered you back by that deadline, now in Alberta we do it kind of as, it's like we have a courtesy where we'll always answer and be like, yeah, you know what, we've decided to not accept the offer, or thanks but no thanks, or here's our counter, and that is kind of the Alberta way.
Yeah.
But legally, no answer is an answer. And I've been in other marketplaces, like in the US or in other countries, and they will just not answer you. And you just have to wait for your deadline, and you just have to wait and see if you get an answer. I know, right? I think that too, but legally, that is how it works. But
Yeah.
you know what? I get what they're saying, but, you know, tell me something. But yeah, in other marketplaces, I've seen it where they just don't answer.
Yeah, and I guess you know, when I think a lot of, like, we don't have happen when the seller comes back and says completely no. Usually when that happens, the offer has a lot of challenges, like it's a very low price with terms and conditions, that the dates are very long and completely don't serve the seller's needs whatsoever. So we do get like the seller that like says, no, I will not even counter or negotiate this offer or anything. You know, the clients can go, like the buyers can go and rewrite. And you have to remember, if you get that answer as a buyer, because we have like said, no, the seller said no. And like, what? There's not even a counter? Well, the seller is not obligated to give a counter offer.
100%.
So if you have, or if you have written, a very, how to say,
Aggressive,
low ballsy offer, and then don't expect that the seller would be like, oh well, let's counter and see how it goes, right?
Yeah, and actually, in the luxury home market, I find that that's more common, where they'll just throw the offer back at you and say no, thank you. It's just they'll use the term "we're just too far apart."
Yes, too far apart. Obviously more a serious seller, so people who do a lot of real estate, they do a lot of investments, they just will not bother. Yeah, and again, that's their right. And as a buyer, I think a lot of the buyers, when they get that answer, get really upset and surprised that they just got no, thank you.
Yeah.
And you need to know, and you have to have this conversation with a realtor when you're like, let's see what happens, and throw an offer. You may just get a hard no.
Well, and I always tell the realtors, and I'll be honest, like when I'm negotiating them with the realtor, I'll say, look, our job is to keep the conversation open until they either agree to agree or they agree to disagree. And right now, closing down the conversation is not going to benefit either your client or mine. So let's keep the conversation opening and come back to me with some type of counter so that we can at least keep talking. Because right now, our job is to keep them talking because we have a seller who wants to sell and a buyer who wants to buy. And then I joke around and I say, and a good compromise leaves everybody miserable, so we just got to get them there.
Yeah, just, get them to their misery.
Exactly. If we're all miserable, we're all happy. So that is generally also the obligation of your agent, that if you do get a hard no back, that you've got to try and actually push the conversation to see if you can get the realtor. Now, sometimes the realtors will just be like, no. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? Fine. So then it's up to the buyer to come back and throw in another offer and see if you can get that conversation going. But I always, too, is the other term I use is I'm like, look, if you counter back, at least we've got a bit of a target here instead of us going blindfold into the dark, shooting at a bullseye that we just can't see. Because how do you know? It doesn't matter where we start, it matters where we finish.
And you know what? I've been in situations when I did represent the buyer and I had to now it's like, okay, they said no to our offer. And I can tell you from the position when you're rewriting a new offer, you're much worse situation if you wrote a reasonable offer to negotiate some price off or terms off than writing extremely low, kind of what we call, again, for realtors, it's not the term, but for the sellers and the buyers, when your emotions involved is offensive, something people get I can't believe it. You even write this, who do you think you are? Because those emotions do get, our clients do experience them. So now when you experience those emotions, you said no, and the buyer's offended, kind of I can't believe my offer didn't got counter. But you still want the place. So you go back in much weaker situation to negotiations. Because seller now knows that you tried once, you basically told, no, thank you, and now you're writing it again. So you really want the place. Yeah. So you just gave your bargaining chips away.
Absolutely.
So listen to your realtor, and if you work with us, we'll tell you those things.
Exactly, and we'll explain to you where your best strategic position is.
Exactly.
And we'll be able. And my argument always is to the clients, when they're like, okay, I'd like to do this, and I always go do my research, and I'm like, okay, well, I can argue that, and as long as I've got basis, historical data or other sales or some way that I can argue that, then that's great. If I can argue it, if I've got data to back me up, but if I'm going in just on hope and luck,
yes,
sometimes hope and luck doesn't work.
Exactly. And again, just going to the point again, just because the person in the market selling something, it doesn't mean they have to accept any offers that come in. unless the offer is completely unconditional at the
That's
full
not true.
price. No?
No. So you can never ever be forced to sell your property if the
Well,
offer.
no, if you change your mind of selling the property.
So the only thing that can happen if the offer is unconditional at your price and with your possession day, the only thing the agent can do is sue for their commissions, the listing agent, because they fulfilled the contract. But the buyer can never force a seller to
Right.
sell if the contract wasn't accepted. So not really, just because it just means that the agent can sue for the commissions.
Yeah, so exactly. You might be on a, so the seller might be on a hook based on the listing agent's action
Commissions.
on commission fees.
And that's it.
And that's when you get that perfect offer, when you ask exactly what you ask for and it's put on MLS or an exclusive listing contract.
But this is also why lots of times I will encourage people to put on possession negotiable.
Yeah.
And the reason that I'll put negotiable on possession is because then there's no defined possession date on the contract.
Yeah.
Which means you can never be forced to fulfill it because the contracts are owned by the listing real estate brokerage. And if, let's say, something happens to me and someone else takes over the contract, I don't want them to have to put you in a position where you can be forced to pay those commissions unless the house actually sells. So that's why sometimes as a seller, you should really think about that, is putting in negotiable instead of a firm date.
Yeah.
Because then the contract by all rights is never agreeable because of the fact that you said negotiable. And you can say, well, yeah, it is negotiable, but that's not the right date. And that's not the right date. And that's not the right date.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you're not forced to pay those commissions. So that is a little trick, so that you can never be forced to pay commissions, even if you get full asking price and no conditions.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, I think we covered all about.
Yes.
Yeah.
So now we're talking about smoking guns because
Smoking
we are giving away an amazing prize of a smoking gun. For this will be given away. I think, are we on the last one? We're not on the last one.
Oh no, we are on the last one.
We're on the last one?
Next week.
Next
oh my
week
God.
is June?
Yes.
My
The
goodness.
Sunday
this
is
month.
June 1st.
Wow.
And I know that because, I had to figure out Dan's schedule with open house schedule, like single parenting this weekend. But yeah, so that means next Wednesday we will be
giving away
this awesome prize, and you can smoke cocktails and food, which is
meat
awesome.
and cheese, which is going to be amazing for barbecue season.
Yeah, and the way you win this is by finding our Tipsy Realtors show on obviously Facebook Live, our Facebook page, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, and YouTube. Every time we'll see you guys liking it, loving it, sharing, tagging your friends and family.
And we said commenting gets 2 entries.
Oh, that's right. So this month we offered it for every comment. And we don't care if it's a comment on a topic or the drink.
Or if you're just like, Robin, why are you looking down your top during the show?
Yeah. Or you like our hats and you
like
want
our hats.
one.
Exactly.
Yeah. Comment directly under the videos. We will make sure it's a video for May. And then we will take those, your names, and put them in a Wheel of Fortune, as I call them.
That's right.
And doesn't matter how many times I find your name, it goes into the drawer.
And when we do next week, we're going to be talking about I said, buying with a builder and what to expect. Oh. So this is why this is important.
Man, I don't even remember coming up with that topic.
Well, it is important, though, because of the fact that this topic is you can use a realtor to buy with a builder, but it's changed so much. And we're going to talk about that in the next session, about how much it's changed using a realtor when buying with a builder and things that you can kind of expect and be careful of.
That's right. Okay. Well, until next week.
No, well, first of all, if you know anyone buying or selling real estate in the next whatever period of time, has any real estate questions, friends, family, coworkers, neighbors, people you like, people you don't like, have them call us. It's important that they get the right information, that they know what they're talking about, that they're well educated, all that kind of stuff. We're here to help. We really, really want to make sure that you know what you're doing and you're making good choices for you to make great real estate investments and get ahead in life. It is actually very important to us.
Absolutely. All right.
Thanks.
Enjoy the great weather.